Hi everyone. Today's lesson is 28 in our 1.6 Journeys book. We are going to read the story The Kite. It comes from a book called Days with Frog and Toad. And if you remember, we had another story about Frog and Toad, and it was called The Garden. We have the same characters in the story The Kite this week. Let's get to the words to know. Turn to page 82 and find number 1. The word in blue is second. The boy is trying to tie his second sneaker. Number 2. She practiced until she could hit the ball well. Ball. Number 3. Across. The runners dashed across the finish line. Across. 4. Head. He hit the ball with his head to make a goal. Head. Number 5. Heard. The children heard clapping at the end. Heard. Number 6. Large. It was not too hard to ride up the large hill. Large. Number 7. Cried. We can do it, cried the team. Cried. Number 8. Should. The teacher said that she should try again. Should. Let's turn to page 84. Our target skill this week is story structure. A story has different parts. Characters are the people and animals in a story. The setting is when and where a story takes place. The plot tells about the problem the characters have and how they solve it. Use a story map to tell about the characters, setting, and plot, just like the map below. Let's preview the topic. Weather. Weather can cause problems. Storms can damage homes. Too much rain can lead to floods. The weather can also help us. Rain helps crops grow. Wind helps us fly kites. You will find out if the wind helps Frog and Toad in The Kite. The anchor text this week is The Kite from the story Days with Frog and Toad. On 86, please find the word genre. A fantasy story could not happen in real life. As you read, look for events that could not really happen. Animals who talk and act like people. Meet the author and illustrator Arnold Lobel. Arnold Lobel drew many animals before he came up with the Frog and Toad characters. During vacations with his family in Vermont, Mr. Lobel watched his children play with frogs and toads. Soon the animals were starring in his books. The Kite from Days with Frog and Toad by Arnold Lobel. Our essential question this week is, how can weather change your day? Turn the page. The Kite. Frog and Toad went out to fly a kite. They went to a large meadow where the wind was strong. Our kite will fly up and up, said Frog. It will fly all the way up to the top of the sky. Toad, said Frog, I will hold the ball of string. You hold the kite and run. Toad ran across the meadow. He ran as fast as his short legs could carry him. The kite went up in the air. It fell to the ground with a bump. Toad heard laughter. 3 robins were sitting in a bush. That kite will not fly, said the robins. You may as well give up. Toad ran back to Frog. Frog, said Toad, this kite will not fly. I give up. We must make a second try, said Frog. Wave the kite over your head. Perhaps that will make it fly. Toad ran back across that meadow. He waved the kite over his head. The kite went up in the air and then fell down with a thud. What a joke, said the robins. That kite will never get off the ground. Toad ran back to Frog. This kite is a joke, he said. It will never get off the ground. We have to make a third try, said Frog. Wave the kite over your head and jump up and down. Perhaps that will make it fly. Toad ran across the meadow again. He waved the kite over his head and he jumped up and down. The kite went up in the air and crashed down into the grass. That kite is junk, said the robins. Throw it away and go home. Toad ran back to Frog. This kite is junk, he said. I think we should throw it away and go home. Toad, said Frog. We need one more try. Wave the kite over your head, jump up and down, and shout, Up, kite, up! Toad ran across the meadow. He waved the kite over his head, he jumped up and down, and he shouted, Up, kite, up! The kite flew into the air. It climbed higher and higher. We did it, cried Toad. Yes, said Frog. If a running try did not work, a running and waving try did not work, a running, waving, and jumping try did not work, I knew that a running, waving, jumping, and shouting try just had to work. The robins flew out of the bush, but they could not fly as high as the kite. Frog and Toad sat and watched their kite. It seemed to be flying way up at the top of the sky. Story structure. Characters are the people and animals in a story. The setting is when and where a story takes place. Where do Frog and Toad try to fly their kite? Is it day or night? The plot is the important events. Think about Frog and Toad's problem. How do they solve it? Use a story map to list the parts of the story. This genre is fantasy. Think about the people in What Can You Do from Lesson 27. How are they different from the characters in the kite? The kite is a fantasy. The story events could not happen in real life. In this story, Frog and Toad talk to each other and do things that people would do. How would a real frog or toad act?